much.
This is fun.
All right, so I guess I get started.
Yes.
All right, so first question. We've seen in the news so much about Donald Trump, and he's bragging about the ICE raids that are going to be happening supposedly this weekend all across the country. What is your reaction to those efforts?
I think it's disgusting. I think this president, the worst thing Trump has done is literally rip apart the moral fabric of this country. He does it every day when he's locking up children, not giving them medicine, clean clothes, clean water, appropriate food, locking up people, separating families. Under this president, 7 children have died. The fact that dozens are still not reunited with their parents, it's inhumane. It's one of the reasons why I'm running for president, because I cannot stand how he demonizes and demeans the most vulnerable in the world. And as president, I would not spend a dime on for-profit prisons to lock up children and families.
So a lot of mayors have vowed that they're going to actually stand in the way. They're going to actively resist those efforts by ICE. What's your, do you support
Smart.
those efforts?
Absolutely. So what's so disturbing about what President Trump has done is because he's really divorced us from our history. Immigration and diversity in our country has always been a strength. It's one of the reasons why we have the largest and most dynamic economy. It's why we have innovation and entrepreneurialism. Immigration is a good thing. And so as president, I will pass comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to citizenship, making sure that the 12 million people here can start coming out of the shadows, participate in the economy fully. It will be an enormous economic engine. I will change everything about how President Trump is dealing with the border. What he's doing right now is so inhumane and so disgraceful. And my question about deportations, who's he deporting? Is he deporting the family members of our service members who's serving abroad, who have had that protection in place for a very long time? Is he deporting our DACA kids, our dreamers? Who is he deporting? The families and the communities that are helping the rest of the country thrive? So I gotta say, he's wrong, he's arrogant, he's inhumane, and it's why I'm going to beat him at the ballot box.
Thank you. Just a day or two ago, you were visiting an economically depressed region of Ohio, Youngstown, where thousands of industrial jobs have been lost. And a woman asked, I'm going to quote her, "Now, this is an area that across all demographics has been depressed because of the loss of its industry and the opioids crisis. So what do you have to say to people in this area about so-called white privilege," unquote? Your answer has become an internet sensation, and it deserves discussion here where so many people are invested in your answer. Would you like to further discuss it?
Yes, I do. Do you mind if I stand?
Sure.
Okay. So in this room in Youngstown, Youngstown, Ohio, in this room, you had people who have been deeply left behind by an economy where jobs have been streaming out, plants have closed, people have lost their livelihood, they've lost their hope, they've lost their dignity. And so when this woman came forward to say, I don't feel privileged at all, I don't understand what so-called white privilege is, I had to recognize her pain, her suffering, that it's real, because it is. When you've been left behind and you have no hope for your child and you look at your son and say he has no hope, that's real. And my job is to fight for her and her family as if they were my own. But this conversation about white privilege is so important because what she doesn't see is that as her son grows older, as my sons grow older, there's going to be moments in his life that his whiteness protects him. His whiteness changes how he's treated. When he walks down a street in a hoodie with a bag of M&Ms in his pocket, he won't be shot. When her son's car breaks down and he needs help and walks into someone's home and knocks on the door, he's not going to be shot. When her son applies for a job He's not going to be discriminated against because of the color of his skin. When her son smokes pot like lots of teenagers in America, the fact that he's white means he probably won't get arrested. And if he was, he'd probably be given a second chance. Now, as a white woman who has certainly experienced enormous amounts of white privilege, I travel with a staff member who's black. And I see how she's being treated differently when we walk into a hotel. I've seen it, and it infuriates me. So if I don't understand that it is my responsibility to lift up her voice, to lift up the voices of black and brown Americans every day, then I'm not doing my job as a U.S. Senator, and I'm not doing my job as a presidential candidate. And that is my responsibility.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was amazing. Quick follow-up question. Do you support reparations, perhaps focused on the families like mine of World War II veterans who received unequal benefits under the GI Bill due to race?
I do. And that's why I support Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee's bill on reparations. And what her bill says is she wants to have a comprehensive study to find out what the best responses are to deal with institutional racism, systemic racism, the unbelievable wealth gap between black and white Americans. And she knows that without a targeted response, we actually can't solve the problem. And so, as president, I will have a broad-based approach for how I will deal with institutional racism in all its forms, in all its places. Because we see it in healthcare, education, jobs in the economy, and in criminal justice. And I'll just name a couple of solutions that I want to work on in addition to passing that legislation. Maternal mortality. We have among the highest rate of maternal death in this country of any industrialized country. But if you are a black woman, you are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth. Because when that woman says to her doctor or her nurse or her caregiver, something's wrong, I don't feel right, they don't believe her. They dismiss her pain, they dismiss her condition, and so 4 times more likely she will die. In New York City, you're 12 times more likely to die, either within childbirth or within a year of giving birth because of institutional racism. We know the economy is not fair. Minority-owned businesses don't have the same access to capital to grow their businesses, to grow their wealth. So I would use my Small Business Administration as president to absolutely dive into supporting black-owned businesses, supporting minority-owned businesses, and supporting women-owned businesses, because that lack of capital means they don't have an opportunity to grow wealth, and to create jobs. I also, two more things. I would also deal with the criminal justice issues, and I would do it directly. I would legalize marijuana, I would decriminalize marijuana, and I would deschedule marijuana. And then with that revenue from this new business, I want to make sure that revenue and those opportunities don't go to Wall Street. Let's make sure they go to black and brown communities so they can actually be owners, growers, and distributors. I would also take the money from that revenue and reinvest it in the black and brown communities that have been so disproportionately harmed by the use of our criminal justice system and the institutional racism in it. And I would reinvest in the businesses, in the communities, and have real equity investment. And then in terms of decriminalization, I would vitiate all the criminal records if you've been arrested for marijuana and take it off records of those who have been arrested.
Thank you for that. We have our first community question, community activist question.
From Jasmine.
Oh, get the whole family.
Oh, can I hold her, please?
I think you can.
Hi everyone, my name is Jose Mazariegos. I'm a Guatemalan immigrant. This is our daughter, Nicolasa.
Is she okay?
This is our daughter, Marina Niconasa. And my question, once again, my name is Jasmine Rivera. Family detention, family separation at the border, and deportations are tools of a broken immigration system. Not only is the act of incarcerating children and families abusive, there is extensive research that for a child, even a short period in detention has long-lasting detrimental mental and physical health effects. The Berks County Detention Center is a prison for immigrant families in Pennsylvania where children as young as 2 weeks old have been incarcerated. Berks has committed a series of documented human rights abuses and due process violations while disregarding state and federal laws. This abusive and unlawful treatment could end now by issuing an emergency removal order that our governor, Governor Wolf, could order issued. Will you end family detention if elected? And will you call on Governor Wolf to issue an ERO and shut down Berks now?
The very direct answer is absolutely yes. I will do both. And I'll tell you, what's wrong about what President Trump's doing is he's actually not funding border security. He's actually not funding the anti-gun trafficking, anti-human trafficking, anti-drug trafficking, cross-border terrorism work that ICE is supposed to be doing. In fact, he's diverting the funds from that and he's putting it all into these for-profit prison systems. So as president, I will not fund a for-profit prison system. I would have a community-based asylum process. So when a family comes seeking asylum, I would make sure, number one, they are assigned lawyers. Number two, we have real immigration judges to assess their claims. And number three, have a community-based process where they can be within the community so they can come back and live with families and community-based solutions. Now, I visited these detention centers. I have to tell you, never have I been so enraged by the inhumanity and the lack of empathy for the needs. When I read stories about children who do not have clean clothes, who do not have access to water, who do not have access to healthy food, while they are locked up by this president, it is something that is against humanity. And we, all of us, have a responsibility to fight as hard as we can against this president. It's why I have the most anti-Trump agenda voting record in the US Senate. Because what he is doing is outrageous. And so I would not allow these processes that he's created, and I would make sure that immigration is taken out of Homeland Security and actually put back into the Department of Justice where it used to be, and have immigration judges that are appointed for life so that we can have a comprehensive asylum, humane and thoughtful system.
Thank you, Senator. So we have...
Oh, yeah, yes. I would call on him. And I visited the places we have in New York, and I gotta tell you, they're very disturbing. They're run by HHS, and one of the places I visited, it looks beautiful from the outside. It looks like you're on a college campus. And you think, oh, this is great. But no, it's for young kids from, I think, something like maybe 10, 11, 12 to 17, because the second a child who's 17 turns 18, they call ICE and they deport them. In the bedrooms, they're homes, and the bedrooms that look like a prison. Every bed is exactly the same, no personal effects allowed. And they have chain-linked fences around these homes, and these kids are marshaled in and out to where they go. When they get to actually leave the facility once a month for a field trip, they are prohibited from speaking to anyone outside their group. I mean, it is really unbelievable that the only experience these children are experiencing in the United States is incarceration. It's wrong, it's immoral. Yeah, shut it down, shut it down.
So we're running out of time, and the second community question is an excellent one. So I'm going to ask the people out back to send the next activist out so that we can make sure we have enough time to discuss that question. There we go. Perfect.
Hello, I'm Nina Ravel. I'm active with Sierra Club's Ready for 100 campaign and producer of a local radio show, Philly Talks Climate.
Yes. Yeah.
The recent refinery fire in Philadelphia could be seen from space. Extreme climate events are happening more and more frequently. Meanwhile, the US's reliance on fossil fuels has not decreased. Is this how our civilization is to go down? By burning up the planet? 2019 is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo program, President Kennedy's moonshot, when in 10 years we mobilized to send a man to the moon and brought him back. Today we are in a climate emergency and science has given us 10 years to change course. What would you do to address the crisis with the urgency it requires?
Thank you. I loved your question, and I see it the same way you do. I believe that global climate change is the greatest threat to humanity that exists today. It will be the most important part of my presidency and an issue I'm willing to lose everything over. Because that's how urgent it is. People are dying because of severe weather events across America, because of flooding, because of fires. We've seen it. So, two things. As president, I would pass the Green New Deal. And you want to know why I know I can do it? Because most of it's already bipartisan, and I've been working on it for a decade. All it is clean air, clean water. There's not a state, there's not a community that doesn't have access to clean water that needs it. In Pennsylvania, you've got things like PFOA and PFAS at military bases and because of manufacturing. In places like Flint, you've still got lead that has to be eradicated. It's real. So that's bipartisan. Green jobs, also bipartisan. Every kid in America should have access to STEM. Every entrepreneur and innovator should want to be solving this problem because it's a way to create jobs. We should be investing in wind, solar, geothermal, hydropower, and biofuels with lower taxes and putting a price on carbon to make sure you're actually making the polluters pay more. And last is infrastructure. There's nothing more bipartisan than that. Everyone wants high-speed rail, rural broadband, a new electric grid, more mass transit. So that's how you pass the Green New Deal. The only part that's new is net zero carbon emissions within 10 years, which is why your moon analogy is so good. Because that is your aspirational goal. When John F. Kennedy said, I want to put a man on the moon in the next 10 years, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, he knew it was an organizing principle. He knew it was a measure of our effectiveness and our competitiveness. So he started a space race with Russia so he could drive American entrepreneurs to do this and want to be part of the NASA program. Why not, as president, create the opportunity for a green energy race with China globally? Not only re-enter the global climate accords, but lead the national, international discussion. Make it the cornerstone of your administration and lead.
Thank you so much. I hate to ask this question with only about 2 minutes left, but hopefully we can get a good answer. So Laura Packard of the Netroots Nation community, she asks, how would you make sure all Americans have affordable, comprehensive health care? And would you remake our healthcare system through a new plan or more incrementally?
So, I believe that health care must be a right and not a privilege. Must be. And to get there, you're really going to need to take on the insurance industry as well as the drug companies. And you have to do it directly, first by getting money out of politics. I'm the only presidential candidate who has a comprehensive transformational approach to getting money out of politics through publicly funded elections, and to have clean elections so that you can go at the root of the political corruption. So, and that's step one. Step two is let everyone buy into Medicare at a price they can afford, 4 or 5% of income, something like that, so that you drive competition with the insurers. Let the insurance companies try to compete. I don't think they will. They've never lowered their prices. They don't believe in serving patients first. They believe in serving profits first. And then second, after a few years of transition, most Americans are going to buy in because it's higher quality and it's going to be more affordable. Then your step to single payer is really short. And that's when you can ask everyone to buy in, just like Social Security, making it an earned benefit and guaranteed for everyone. Because the reality is, no matter where I travel in this country, the biggest fear is not having access to health care. Of every mother, of every father, of every community. Just imagine how crippling it is if your child is diagnosed with a disease and you know you won't be able to afford what the insurance company is going to make you pay. Imagine the fear, the terror. you are feeling that you cannot protect your own child. That is what millions of Americans feel every day. And when President Trump attacks pre-existing condition coverage, when he attacks the ACA, he's literally creating anxiety and fear across the country. So as president, I will guarantee Medicare for all, I will guarantee a single-payer system, and I know how to get it done.
Thank you so much, Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Marcus. Thank you.